Hambini fans, and welcome to another episode of Hambini Reams. In today's episode, all the way from Lightbicycle, somewhere in the Far East, we've got these, which are the Lightbicycle Precision C21 disc wheels, and they're also disc brake. Now, I've been using these for about 6 or 7 months, so it's a bit of a long-term review. I've crashed it multiple times because, as you can understand, one of the main pitfalls of having one of these is when it gets windy. Start off with the weight. This may not be that easy to see. They are coming in at, if I can get them to stay still, fuck, about 1,020 grams. So that includes the valve. That's the only thing extra. The outer is about 26 or 27 mil. The inner is roughly 21. When you buy the wheels, you get the wheels, the hubs, you don't get a through axle, and you do not get a lock ring for that side. It usually comes with your cassette, but I usually use an aftermarket one. You also get this, which is like an adapter to inflate it, because that is a pain in the backside. A valve stem spacer, the dust cap for the Presta valve, and 2 stickers to stick onto the cover, or the hole, to cover it up. I generally just use duct tape, but it comes with that anyway. It comes with a pair of them. So the exterior of these wheels, they are obviously carbon, and they have these graphics on them. Now, I'm not a personal fan of these graphics, but I guess everyone's different. You can get them completely customized, and I think it's free. I mean, I would have preferred that in sort of just like a black finish, but it was coming on YouTube, so I guess they wanted the contrast. You can see it's quite badly scuffed and scratched, and it's had some serious use, so it's passed the durability test quite easily. The wheel appears to be made in segments and then joined together, so you can see the individual segments here, and so on and so forth. The rim is hooked, so you don't have to worry too much about the thing coming off. It's tubeless compatible, as are all these things these days. Normally, I would fit inner tubes and just a standard clincher, but for this, I did end up going to tubeless. And to be honest, I wouldn't really recommend it as something that you have to live with. It's just a pain. I'd much prefer tubes. But there is a good reason for me going for the tubeless, and that's because the wheel balance of this wheel. Now, when Lightbicycle sent it to me, they did say that the wheel is completely balanced for that. So you have to use that and nothing else, otherwise it goes out of balance. At the speeds I'm traveling at, it's probably not going to make much of a difference, but this rim and the rest of the wheel, I guess you can't just call it the rim anymore, is extremely rigid. I mean, there's no flex in there whatsoever. I mean, it sounds like a drum because it's hollow, but there's no spokes or anything like that, so it just does not flex. The only point at which it can flex is through the joint between the hub and the rest of the wheel. Now, the hub itself is a DT hub, and the immediate thing that I noticed with these compared to some of the other hubs that come on this channel is they are extremely noisy. So and I think that's to do with the ratchet that's on it. I've just separated this apart slightly so the free hub's away from the main wheel, just to expose the ratchet teeth in there. This, I think, is based on it's either a 240, I think it's a 240 hub. There's no sort of secondary seal in there, so you do have to be careful about that, because if you're riding around in winter, you will get ingress into there. The hub itself, the outside, fared fairly well. There's not really much in the way of damage or teeth marks in there, so whatever DT you're using for that, that's really quite good. Just to give you a bit of comparison, this is the 9 Velo, and it's not branded 9 Velo, but it's a 9 Velo hub. So this almost feels like, I mean, the other one, the DT one, feels agricultural compared to this. This feels like a much, finer machined product. You can hear it. It's also a lot quieter. Admittedly, there's no disc to amplify the effect, but even though when you turn it, I mean, you can feel the difference. I know that's difficult to convey on YouTube. The other big difference is this has a seal round there that sits in a lip, whereas the DT one does not. A bit more on this in an upcoming video, but in order to get this apart, it is extremely easy. It's just I think a better design. So you take that end cap off, pull the free hub off, and the spring in there, I don't really want to take the whole of this off because it might just go all the way off. Sod it, we'll just go for it. The spring in there is in a recess, so as soon as you pull the spring out, there's like a groove behind the teeth there. As soon as you pull the spring out, you can get to the bearing. No special tooling is required. So it's well designed, and the manufacturing tolerances on this is, I'd say, the best in class. In order to get the DT hub or service this one, it's very similar. So you pull the end cap off and then slide this out. But this is where the differences start. So first of all, inside there's an anodized cup, which the 9 Velo one doesn't have. It's not the same sort of design, but the ratchet rings are interchangeable, so you can swap them between the two. This is where life gets a little bit more complicated. Once you've removed that, you're then into that back set of teeth. You've then got to get that out, which is easier said than done. So pull the spacer off. And then the final bit of this is you then need a special tool, which if you get from DT, I think is 50 quid. I think this one is from AliExpress. Slide that over and then you need to undo it. So bike shops tend to like these because you'll have to take it back to the bike shop to fix them. I guess the worst thing about having this kind of setup is pumping the tyres up. I've struggled to get a bike pump, just a hand pump, to be able to pump these easily. I've usually had to use an air compressor or something like that. The main issue is the valve access. It'd be ideal if someone made a valve that came out maybe 45 degrees and then you could get just a normal bike pump on there. That's not really a criticism of the wheels, it's just that's the way it is. But overall wear has been fairly good. I mean, it's a disc brake wheel, so you don't get some of the issues that you would with a rim brake where the ends would go thin. Don't have that. There isn't really much aerodynamic benefit between disc wheels, and I'll cover that later. Once you get a solid boundary, the aerodynamics are almost fixed. You see the crash damage on here. It hasn't gone out of true, so it was true from the start and it continues to be true. Generally speaking, when you smash a carbon wheel up, you're going to break it or get away with it. It's not really, it doesn't bend like a metal wheel. Right, now the moment of truth. Let me just get these gloves on. Bit of angle grinder in. If you're going to do this at home, make sure you wear a decent mask because the dust is just awful. Is it still attached? That's the question. Nope. Well, that's not bad at all. That's actually really well made. So there's the segments, and we'll have a closer look now. So the individual wheel segments, there's hardly any ripples, buckles or anything in there. It looks almost perfect. I guess it's a semi-flat surface. When it gets to here where it meets the hub, there's layers in there of carbon which obviously overlap, and there's an epoxy. Now in there you are going to get some ripples and cripples and all that kind of stuff because you're trying to shape a rectangular object which is a layer of carbon around a cylinder, and it isn't really going to go around that well. So you do get some little raised bits and stuff like that. I wouldn't really worry too much about that. This looks like it's got probably 5 or 6 millimeters of carbon layup before it gets to the hub. So this is the section through it, and you've got the carbon layer on the top, and it looks like carbon underneath. You see the carbon weave here. Sandwiched in between is, it looks like foam, but it's a bit too hard to be foam. I don't really know what that is, but it's some sort of it's air-filled material, whatever that is. But yeah, that is how it's made. So it's a laminate sandwich of whatever that is in the middle, and material either side. Right, it is that time of the show again. It is time for PowerPoint. Let us just check that pen is working. Oh yeah, it's on mighty fine form at the moment. It's fueled by some repairs. Right, lightweight disc wheel for TTing by Hambini, age 5. Remember to hit me up on Instagram and on Patreon, and I'm also on Facebook if you are of that age. Right, first of all, let me show you the Lightbicycle website. Here we go. So this is the wheel page for Lightbicycle and the wheels that I have in question. The picture on the right does look slightly different to the one I've got, but my one looks like the one on the left. But, you know, take from that what you will. You can customize them with whatever weave, paint job, anything like that you want. So if you're that way inclined, do so. This, you know, usual stuff about weights and all that kind of stuff is in here. I think the standout feature, and I will come to this, is the last paragraph about dynamically balance testing every wheel. I'm not sure a dynamic balance would absolutely be necessary. I think you'd probably be okay with a static balance because it's quite a slender object, but a dynamic balance is better than a static balance anyway, so you're getting more, so that's a better thing. The specs are all in here, all of that kind of good stuff, and the rim widths and the hubs and that kind of thing. Another thing that you get is the 5-year warranty. I mean, that is worth having, so yeah, that's a tick in the box for them. Right, I have crashed these wheels multiple times, and you could tell from the chop up that they were just basically shagged. Even despite that, the run out was absolutely minimal, less than 0.3 millimeters. Some bottom brackets in machined applications have worse run out than that. So, you know, that is really quite good, especially for a disc, because you've got no adjustment. And the lateral was like 0.2, so again, very good. The rim manufacture, obviously it's a disc, so you can't get to both sides of it, but it looks fairly clean. And you've seen the pictures and the video of the insides of it, and that also looks clean. Yeah, where the disc attaches to the hub, there's loads of layers of carbon around there, but then you are trying to like mold a piece of A4 around a Coke can, which isn't that straightforward. And a point there, it is completely unadjustable, so you cannot adjust it if you go and total it. It's just brake or nothing. This is the out of balance, and it's quite obvious that someone has taken some time to do this because it is absolutely perfectly in line, and the out of balance is very low. I think that is possibly one of the lowest, or the lowest, that I've ever seen in the wheels that I've tested. You can feel that out on the road. It does feel slightly harsh, but that's because the wheel is disc, so it's very stiff. But when you're going at speed, there's no sort of rumbles or anything like that. It's just you know, the wheel doesn't oscillate. If you are going to use this wheel, I used it with a tri-spoke, and a lot of my colleagues always use tri-spokes as well, so it's something that I would recommend. These are the hubs, well, the DT hub. It's these are the 4 bearings in it. So you've got the free hub, rear hub, If you're not familiar with what I've put in here, this is sort of deviation in the hole. So it's a 7. A 7 is basically an industry standard. A 9 is slightly worse than an industry standard, but it's not excessive. And then this N and this P is effectively how much interference there is. So it starts at around about M. So all of these are a bit tight. So I've done those in my comments. Okay, tight. And then when there's a 9, you see there's a bit of eccentricity in the hole. The bearings themselves are not a standard size, and it's a trait that DT use. They often actually label their bearings incorrectly. So a DT 6903 is not is basically bullshit. It should be labelled as something else, but they label it as 6903, which is supposed to be a 17mm bore, but on a DT hub, it's 18. So yeah, don't let that catch you out. I mean, the thing with all of this is you have to be quite pragmatic in all of this. They have loads of hubs that are out there that are functioning, and you can't take that away from them because they're out there and functioning. But if I was going to be critical, I would say that they're not in, you know, extreme conditions. If you want to get the best of the best, this probably isn't it. It's not bad, and obviously there are other ones out there, but it's not like a masterclass in machining by any means. And this is kind of indicated in here. So this is the vibration plot for the wheel. There's quite a lot of high ambient vibration in there, for background vibration, and it's mainly due to sort of like inaccuracies, so eccentricity and all of that stuff. Now, would you be able to feel it? That's a subjective question, and it'll be dependent largely on your tire pressure. If you have a very, very high tire pressure, or just make the tire rigid, you would probably, and went on a slightly roughish road, you'd probably feel it. But most of the time, you'd have enough damping in your system not to be able to feel it. This fundamental train frequency is quite high. It suggests the bearing is slightly misaligned, or the cage is about to break. Bear in mind, I have crashed these a few times. I can't remember if I'd crashed them before I'd tested them for the fundamental train frequency, but there you go. But overall, this background vibration is high, and that's sort of indicative of, you know, it's not perfectly concentric. This is the free stream recovery. This is only really to give you an indication of how a disc wheel works. Now, usually in aerodynamics, we work with relative numbers, and one of those relative numbers, or non-dimensional, is the strict term for it. One of the most popular ones of those, are well known, is Reynolds number, which is rho VD over mu. That uses a D term, which a lot of people think is diameter, but it's not. It's characteristic dimension, and characteristic dimension could be anything you specify. But in this case, what I've sort of used the characteristic dimension is how many lengths it takes for the free stream to recover. So if you are on a fairly old Mavic CXP wheel set, you need about 3.5 bike lengths for the free stream to recover. It's obviously speed dependent, but when you're on a disc, it's just over 2.25. So that's the difference. So you're moving the air less out of the way, and it recovers faster, and that's why you become faster on a disc. Right, tidbits, the good. 5-year guarantee, that is worth having, and they are, I don't think they're going to be going out of business anytime soon, so don't worry about that. And then fast and reliable. Okay, I've been fairly critical with it and said, you know, the various bits on it aren't like the best in the world, but at the end of the day, I've crashed it so many times and it's been reliable, so you have to take that into account. There is no flex. If you like your handling to be very direct, then this is the way to go. The balancing is like, is it another league? I'll put it in capitals because it is exemplary. It's very, very good. So I can't really say much about that. That's a serious selling point for the wheel set. is hooked, and it's quite low inertia for a disc. So compared to some others, the design's a bit different because some of them don't have this composite panel. So anyway, decent. I'd say it was decent value. I suppose that's again a subjective term. Credible company, and that's a big thing if you are buying from the Far East. Obviously, Lightbicycle have a North American service centre, and I think they also have distribution in Europe, but don't quote me on that. Yeah, right. The pain in the backside with any of these disc wheels is pumping them up, because you need to get your adapter in at like a right angle, and you get an adapter with it. So that's a very useful thing that they put in, and I appreciate it, and I think most people would appreciate it, especially if it's your first disc wheel. It's something that you'd have to worry about later. The bad, this isn't really a stickler on the wheel per se on Lightbicycle. It's not really possible to make discs any faster because it's a solid boundary that air cannot go past. It's like trying to improve the aerodynamics of a brick wall. The wall, even if you make it thicker or bend the edges slightly, fundamentally it's still a brick wall. So its aerodynamics are not going to change. But you get a lot of manufacturers out there who claim that their disc wheel is going to be head and shoulders above everybody else's. It's basically bullshit. So there you go. Right, questions and comments. You can have a look on hambini.com, and there's more data on there with graphs and all that kind of good stuff, so have a look at that. And please comment below. If you did enjoy this video, remember to hit like and also hit subscribe. Remember to follow me on Shitstagram and the website hambini.com and Patreon. Now, that is the absolute end of the video. If you did enjoy it, remember to smash that like button. If you didn't, go screw yourself. And as always, keep banging your hairdresser.